I'm so sick of trying to record this video. This has got to be over 10 attempts now. I just want to one-shot it because I really don't like film editing, which between not liking being in front of a camera and not liking film editing, this might not be for me, but I want to document the the attempt at self-improvement. So here we are. Uh, Today is October 4th. Boulderfest is officially on October 12th. That's when the open finals will be. But the round that I'm competing in is October 11th, which means in exactly 1 week I am competing in Boulderfest, which also means this video is very late, but you know, it is what it is. Um, I'll just get really quickly into the numbers because I feel like if I just get the numbers out there, then I can kind of mess up the rest of the video and not be that worried about it. Instead of doing the 20mm edge dead hang with added weight, I was choosing to do edge pulls. So, you know, you take a block with an edge, strap a bunch of weight to it, and you just lift it off the ground. I felt like I could be more consistent with that, and just that I could measure the progress of hands individually with that to make sure that, you know, like one side wasn't particularly stronger than the other. And I figured maybe that would put me at a little bit less risk for injury because it seems a little bit more controlled if I can just take it one rep at a time, hand by hand. And also there's just less weight, potentially. So I was doing that, and then for pull-up I'm still doing regular pull-ups with added weight on. When I started my 1 rep max from the 9C test on pull-ups, which was only a little bit before the training plan, so I didn't retest it, was 125 pounds, which is my body weight. And my fingers were at 70 pounds for each hand individually. And by the time I finished at the very end, I was up to 82.5. And my pull-ups were down technically to 115. And my chin-ups, I added chin-ups because I thought it would be good to maybe try and balance the like tricep aspect of a regular pull-up with the bicep aspect of a chin-up. There's no real reasoning for that. It's very pseudoscientific. Chin-ups were at 110. However, those were up from the midway test that I did, where my fingers were at 80 pounds, and my pull-ups and chin-ups were at 105 each. I guess I'll just do really quickly into my thoughts on the whole thing. So I have a calendar here of how consistent I was with my training. And you'll notice in September, which, you know, this past month, I was traveling for basically 2 weeks straight, which meant that I didn't really get a lot of training in. So the fact that my fingers still increased by 2.5 pounds from 6 weeks to like 10 weeks felt pretty good overall. I was mostly happy that they didn't decrease. And pull-ups and chin-ups going up felt pretty good from the midway point. But when I tested the fully added 125 pounds of body weight, that was done at a different facility than where I was doing most of my training in these tests. So I'm figuring that A, I could have had a really good day, but B, that the bar could have been a little bit more grippy, or maybe the bar fit my hand better, or, you know, there are any number of these sort of little variables that could impact why I performed better on one day to the other. But the increase from the 6-week mark to the 10-week mark made me feel a little bit better about it, just because I know that I still improved a bit, even if it wasn't back to the full 100% added body weight kind of bragging point, I guess. Um, One other thing about the results was that uh, only 3 days after my uh, midway point retest, so August 30th was the retest, and then on September 2nd, I did my first one arm pull ups ever, which is not something I specifically train for, but it's one of those things where I go to the gym and I'm like, I wonder if I can do a one arm pull up today. And sometimes I'll try it, and the answer had always been no up until September the 2nd, 2024. And I've managed to do it a couple times since then. I can't like bust out one arm pull ups on command basically, but like on a good day once a week maybe I could do them. And that's with each arm. It's not just like one arm, because I know that some people have like an imbalance where they can only do them with one arm. But it seems like that's a good anecdotal indicator that the strength training was also working. So yeah, now I'll just sort of get into like the training plan itself, and how I came up with it slash adapted it from other training plans, and all that kind of detail. I have a book, which is the American Council on Exercise Personal Trainer Manual, 5th edition. And most of the training plan came from that. Basically, in that book, it mentions that you generally want to train like 3 days a week. Since I already climb 4 days a week, I figured I would just do 2 days a week of training, because I'm climbing on the other two, and that's still a stimulus for basically the same muscle groups, even though it's not in isolation or as intense. I figured it probably wouldn't be problematic to rely on that as part of just me getting stronger. Also, I just like climbing more than I like training, generally speaking. Yeah, 2 days a week of training, and I chose Monday and Friday as those days because the book mentions that you want a minimum of 48 hours of recovery between stimulating those muscle groups. So there are still like 48-hour blocks between the Monday, Wednesday training and climbing, and then there's another 48 hours between climbing and training again, Wednesday to Friday. Saturday is just sort of when all my friends climb, so that day is generally not like a maximum effort day. It's pretty casual. So there's not as much rest there, but the results were the results. I improved. I figure it didn't hurt me that much, hopefully. Yeah, so anyways, the Monday and Friday days were my training days, which allowed hopefully adequate recovery. And then I'll probably just flash a screenshot up over my face or somewhere off to the side, whatever, of what the actual training numbers looked like. But generally speaking, it was just you figure out what your 1 rep max is for an exercise, and then week to week you start with a low percent of your 1 rep max. I think it was like, well, low relatively, 70% of your 1 rep max. Then you go up to 80%, and then you go up to 90%, and then you're changing the number of repetitions you're doing, so that you're doing like lower weight, higher reps, medium weight, medium reps, high weight, low reps. And then you just repeat that in a cycle, basically over and over. You just repeat that over and over until like the entire training plan period is done. And for mine, the training plan period was through 3 months. Yeah. Yeah. So the yeah, having the screenshot up should probably be good enough to describe most of what the actual specifics of the training plan were. So now we'll just add some quick addendums in, I guess. I messed with my shoulder on August 10th, so like a month basically into the training plan. So I needed to take a week where I basically wasn't training hard. I was just kind of lightly continuing to do exercise and monitoring how tweaky it felt. And that went away within a week, so that was good. All's well that ends well, I suppose. Um, but yeah, be careful, I guess, if you are picking up a new exercise program. You don't, the fastest way to not improve is to get injured and not be able to do any exercise. Um, I did some dynamometer readings too. I didn't have an initial one, so that kind of sucked, but I did have a midway point one that I did, which was 55 kilograms on my right hand and 54.3 kilograms on my left hand. That's roughly like 125 pounds because 55 kilograms is roughly my body weight for right hand. And then since it's almost a kilogram less for my left hand, it would be something like 123. I'm sure somebody can take a calculator and tell me what the real numbers are, but those were the midway values. And then at the end, I got 55.7 on my right hand and 55.2 on my left hand. So 0.7 increase and 0.9 increase. Obviously, that's not very scientific. It seems almost like it could just be like I was feeling better that day and I managed to squeeze a kilogram harder. The difference is not significant as far as I can tell. But anecdotal data for somebody to maybe be better about recording their dynamometer readings throughout. Ultimately, the final test will be how I do in Boulderfest. So, hopefully everything will go well. I'll get to do my competition in a week, and then I'll have another update video. The plan post Boulderfest is that I would actually like to continue doing training somewhat like this. I think I'm going to change the exercises to doing, instead of a 20 millimeter edge pull, to be a 10 millimeter edge pull, just because for nothing other than delusion and intuition, I assume that translating from a 10 millimeter edge pull to a 20 millimeter edge pull, you would see more correlation than the opposite, going like 20 millimeters to 10, because I'll see a lot of people who can climb and they can pull really hard if they're given like a full finger pad or whatever of surface, and then you give them less than that and all of a sudden they can't pull at all. But if you can pull on a basically nothing, then presumably you can also pull when you're given a lot of space. Again, nothing scientific there, just sort of intuition. Obviously, that means the weights that I'll be doing will be way lighter, particularly because I really don't want to get like a pulley injury or something stupid training. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then for pull-ups, I'll probably be changing that to inverted rows, just because I imagine that would maybe be better for like pulling in on an overhung roof type motion, but also just because I don't want to keep banging away at the same exact form, and rows still primarily target the back muscles. So yeah, I think those will probably be the exercises I choose for my next one. I was noticing that maybe I want an exercise to target specifically forearms too, because I feel like my pinches are really my weak point now. I've been, doing a bit of climbing, and I'm just like, oh, my pinches really feel like they're holding me back right now. So potentially I'll be spending a bunch of time working on like forearms or pinches or something like that. But yeah, to be determined. We'll see how Boulderfest goes and deal with all of that stuff afterwards. Right. Yeah. Thanks for watching, I guess. Bye bye.